So looking at this question down here, I'm going to do two examples. I'm going to do it as a sine curve as well as a cosine curve. So they kind of forced your hand there with the fact that they wanted you to use cosine, but we're going to start out by just finding a sine curve. So um, we're actually not going to do that. Sorry, changed my mind. We are not going to do sine because we have not talked about shifting left and right. We have not talked about a phase shift yet. So, just a quick refresher about the cosine function. Remember, it also has its 5 points, but it starts up 1, and then at 2 pi, it ends up 1 as well. And again, that's because on the unit circle, that coordinate is 1 comma 0. So at 0 and 2 pi, you're up 1. At pi, you are down 1, and then perfectly in the middle at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, you are hitting the x-axis. So the cosine graph looks like this. One period has this full valley down here, and then a half hill and a half hill when you haven't shifted it left or right at all. So you're probably looking at this and you're like, why am I down there at -2? So I'm just going to make some observations down there. I'm at 0, at x equals 0. I'm at y equals -2. So that's interesting. And as I look at the graph, it looks like we've got a half hill, sorry, half valley, full hill, and a half valley right there. And it looks like that ends at 2 pi. So it looks like the period is equal to 2 pi. And then it doesn't look like I was shifting up and down because it's 2 above and 2 below, and hopefully that's yelling out to you that the amplitude is 2. So let's just run with it. So we know that we want it in the form of a times cosine bx plus d. So if we work our way from what I think is the easiest to the hardest, I think the a value is the easiest because it's just 2. The amplitude is 2. Whether or not there's a negative out front, we'll deal with that in just a second. I think B is the hardest. And then let's deal with D right now. So D again is that shifting up and down. So since I'm at the x-axis, looks like it is having perfectly even hills and valleys above and below it. So I think there was no shifts up and down. So we're just going to have a +0 out there. Um, hopefully you're seeing that it should be reflected because again, our parent function that I little picture I did up there has you starting at up 1, but now we're at down 2. So we need to have that negative out in front of the 2 there. Okay. Last thing I think is the hardest is the b value. And again, the equation of a period is 2 pi divided by b. So we looked at the length of our period. It looks like there was a half valley, sorry, full hill and half valley all occurring from 0 to 2 pi. So I know that this has to be true. And what makes that stay true? Hopefully, you're seeing that b equals 1. If you wanted to actually solve it, you would just make it 2 pi equals 2 pi times b. Make that another color. And then to get b by itself, you would divide by 2 pi on both sides and get that b equals 1. So we've got this -2 cosine of 1x plus 0. And then if we're going to clean that up a little bit, we need our -2. We do not need the 1 out in front of the x, and we do not need the 0. So my final answer should be -2 cosine of x. Hope that helps.